Ladies and gentlemen, equality. This is Gentlemen's History Session. This is a historic, important day. We're here on location in the island, Galveston Island. I have a distinguished special guest. Got Brother Sam Collins from the island.
Yes, sir. Born on the island, BOI.
Hey, man. Let the people know why it's a historic day. This is officially June 17th, 2021. So history has been made.
History was made today when the president signed into law Juneteenth as a national holiday. Okay. 156 years almost to the day. Juneteenth is actually Saturday the 19th and today is the 17th. But 156 years ago, our ancestors that were enslaved were finding out that they were going to be free. And now, today, like the 4th of July, Juneteenth is a national holiday and federal employees have tomorrow off because of the events this afternoon.
Now, for our show, we like to go back and then move forward.
All right.
To give a lot of context for why we
how we got here.
How we got here, man. We like to say that history is the path to the future.
Yes, sir.
So it's you have a history of the past, you have a history of the present, and you have a history of the future because it's all related.
Okay.
So we like to look at it as if we're moving forward, but we're moving forward on the shoulders of events that happened in the past.
Absolutely.
So we were just casually talking, just to give some context and work our way up to what we call Juneteenth here in Texas, Galveston to be specific.
Okay.
And I know some of the things when you talk to people about Juneteenth, some of the things you hear people say, oh, we was 2.5 years late, or oh, we were freed, the Emancipation Proclamation freed us, Abraham Lincoln, quote unquote, freed the slaves, and that's what they'll say in a lot of the history books. The Civil War, and then January 1st, 1863 is what people consider freedom or the abolishment of slavery, which is also a misnomer.
That's correct.
Because that was just the Emancipation Proclamation. The 13th Amendment was the abolishment of slavery, which came 1865. So let's go back to the what was going on around that time during that Emancipation Proclamation, and just kind of dispel some of the misnomers of what was going on with the Union and the Confederacy around that time. So when people say, oh, well, we were late because the Emancipation Proclamation was supposedly what freed the quote-unquote slaves.
Well, the Emancipation Proclamation was first signed September 22nd, 1862 by Lincoln. And at that time, the Union had control of Galveston. Many people don't know that the Union had control of the island in the fall of 1862, and it was the Battle of Galveston that returned power to the Confederacy on January 1st, 1863, when the Emancipation Proclamation was supposed to go into effect. So news about the Emancipation Proclamation had been in Texas since September of 1862, and between September of 1862 and December of 1864, it was printed in 125 newspapers, according to one author, Donald J. Norman Cox, DJ Norman Cox. He has a book, Juneteenth 101, and in it he cites every newspaper article that was written related to the Emancipation Proclamation. And people say, well, the enslaved people couldn't read, but they could hear. So they would have been working in the homes of enslavers. They would have been working in the businesses of enslavers and business people. So they would have heard them talking about these newspaper reports about Lincoln, and they were probably hearing comments about Lincoln's not my president. He don't run nothing here. You're gonna be my property forever. That was probably the commentary that was being said.
That was going on around that time. Another thing, in talking about those bordering states.
Absolutely. The enslaved people were not freed in the border states in the Union.
Yeah, no, those states were, it was Missouri, Delaware, Maryland, and Kentucky. And I think later, West Virginia. But those were those bordering states where it was still, enslavement was still allowed, but Lincoln,
in the Union side, on the
Union side. Yeah, this is the Union side that a lot of people don't know about.
That's right. They think it was just the South that had slaves, but the North had slaves, and they were not freed with the Emancipation Proclamation. It only applied to states in rebellion meaning the Confederate States of America.
And they call them the bordering states because they were on the border of the Confederates that wanted the secession from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then another thing is that, from what I understand, is that Texas, when we talk about, you know, the message and what was going on during that time after the Emancipation Proclamation, Texas was still practicing slavery, and they were able to do it, and people were coming. It was almost as if to say, hey, if you still want to practice slavery during the Emancipation,
move west. Bring all your slave people to Texas.
Yeah, go out to Texas.
Well, if we're going to back it up, we need to back it up to when in 1820, when the immigrants moved into Mexico-controlled territory, didn't want to learn the language, didn't want to accept the faith, and wanted to expand slavery. Those immigrants were the Texians. And see, they went to battle with Mexico because they didn't want to accept Mexico's rules in 1820s. Mexico had already outlawed slavery. That's why we get 1836, Texas winning its independence, because they were settlers, immigrants that didn't want to abide by the rules of the country that they were immigrating to. So they fought for independence. And then in 1836, won the independence, and Texas became its own independent nation, delaying freedom 29 years from 1836 to 1865.
So it's not new. This ain't anything new. We started talking about Juneteenth.
This ain't new.
And messages and timetables and 2.5 years, getting a message supposedly 2.5 years later. This ain't anything new that's been going on here in the United States.
Yeah, so what happened, Texas was an independent nation. It became a state on December 29th, 1845, when it joined the United States, and then it seceded in 1861. But also during that time period, a lot of people know the Underground Railroad that goes to Canada. Well, in Texas, enslaved people ran south because they would have went to Mexico, which had already outlawed slavery, and there's a new book out, South to Freedom. So enslaved people in Texas, if you just look at a map, why would you try to run all the way up to Canada in the cold when all you had to do was make it to Mexico, step across the Rio Grande, and you in freedom?
Yeah. Hey, another thing I wanted to hit on, man, and just talking about that Emancipation Proclamation and Abraham Lincoln and what was going on around that time was two of the acts that I researched. One was the Militia Act of 1862, which allowed for blacks to, because the other thing was blacks fighting on the Union side.
Yes.
We basically fought to free ourselves.
Absolutely.
We fought in that Civil War.
We were not victims, but victors.
Victors.
That Harry Jones says.
Yeah, in that Civil War. So I don't ever try to approach it from us being victims.
Right.
We want to approach it from us being victorious, and us migrating from the South to the Union side.
Yeah.
Now, initially, of course, they didn't even want blacks fighting. They had a Militia Act of, I want to say, 1795, which basically stated that only whites
could
could fight.
Weapons.
Yeah,
or
and
fight.
have weapons and fight. Then that Militia Act of 1862 came about, and that's when blacks were able to fight in wartime as laborers. And then also, when the unions were making their way down south, a lot of enslaved blacks were kind of fitting, like joining in on the Union side.
Absolutely, because if they figured if the Union won, they would get freedom, and they could help the Union, because not only did they have the physical bodies and strength, but they had intel.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to emphasize, that they knew the land. They knew the rivers to cross. They knew the back way to get around a plantation. They knew how to get to the supplies. They knew where to take out a railroad or bridge. They had intel. So we also need to recognize that because of their intelligence, it helped to win the war, and not just physical labor that to do manual labor. And
then also they had, during that same time, in July, they had the Militia Act, and they had the what they call the Confiscation Act. Now that was they would seize land and property from disloyal citizens, the supporters of the Union in the South, as well as the emancipation of their slaves that came under Union control. So the slaves that belonged to a rebel was basically free, and they gave power to confiscate slaves. So both of these acts were going on at the same time, the Militia Act and the Confiscation Act. So those dates of 1861, 1862, we throw around a lot of dates out here. So when the people watching, when they go and do their own homework, around the time of that Civil War, a lot of things was happening all at once to lead up to 1865.
That's correct.
You know,
you got to build those blocks to get to 1865.
Yeah.
So you don't just get that. And in the first recorded act, May 23rd, and not act in voting, but I'm talking about physical, like act, something that was done. May 23rd, 1861, Baker, Mallory, and Townsend ran for their own freedom. So they ran the Union lines, and when they got there, Benjamin Butler made a decision not to return them to the Confederacy. That was key to the war, because the Confederacy was asking that they be returned under the fugitive slave law, but Butler said, you are a foreign nation. You no longer under our Constitution, and we are at war. Therefore, any property we seize, we get to keep. So you get the contraband of war. These men made a choice themselves to run for freedom, and then after on that side, many others began to run, and the Union found themselves with all these enslaved people showing up. And see, the thing about Granger that many people don't know, Granger was returning runaway slaves to the Confederacy.
Is Gordon Granger?
Gordon Granger
Gordon
was
Granger
returning. When runaway slaves would get to a camp where he was at, he would send them back, but Butler didn't do that. So Granger wasn't necessarily a friend to the enslaved. He was just following orders in 1865.
But just for context, to let people know, Granger was, when that order number 3,
General Order Number 3.
General Order Number 3 was signed, Granger is the person that's credited with sending the message to Galveston.
Yeah, he was here in Galveston. So on this southwest corner where we are right now, next door was the Osterman building. And the Osterman building is where Granger set up his Union headquarters on June 19, 1865. Union forces were already on the island. The island had already surrendered Texas in June 2nd. Granger came in June 13th. He got command of Texas. That was General Order Number 1. General Order Number 2, he set up his command, and under his command was a Major Frederick Emory. Emory had been an abolitionist and an editor of an abolition paper, and I believe he is the reason that we have the words absolute equality in General Order Number 3. So the first sentence ends with all slaves are free, and the second sentence begins with this involves an absolute equality, and Emory is the one that wrote that, not Granger.
And that's the general order that was read once Granger got here.
Yeah, so
he read it, he didn't write it.
Yeah, the general order was issued. There's no public record anywhere that Granger physically read it out loud to a group of people. So people think that.
See, it's almost related as if this guy came down on a horse. Like some Paul Revere type stuff. You know, the redcoats are coming. He's just
a savior.
Hey, y'all free.
And that's not what happened. Granger was not necessarily sympathetic to the enslaved people. He was just here. Grant didn't really like Granger. That's in this book, Juneteenth. It's written about by Ed Cotham. I know everybody's talking about Annette Gordon Reed on Juneteenth, and that's kind of a memoir of her family memories and things. Cotham's book is more research military, but he doesn't give a lot of credit to the USCT. He doesn't talk about them much. He talks about events and things that led up to Juneteenth. But we have to expand the narrative, because in newspaper reports in July of 1865, a telegraph went out from Galveston on June 20th and was in the newspapers in July. And the thing, when we're doing this research, you have to realize that news wasn't in the paper tomorrow. So the events of today on June 17, 2021, they already electronically posted online.
Oh yeah,
and
we
information
get it.
like that. So
yeah, we get it instantly.
Back then, you may find a story 2-3 weeks out after the event because the message traveled much slower to get it out. They had telegraphs, but it still took time. You had to typeset all the newspapers and put the letters in upside down and backwards and spell the words. That took skill, man.
One thing we talked about to touch on that when you were talking about hearing the conversations. And this Booker T. Washington, Up From Slavery, when he touches on hearing word of the Emancipation Proclamation, the enslaved blacks around that time were going to pick up the mail. They would listen in on the conversations, even if they couldn't read.
They was
ear
ear
listening.
hustling.
Hey,
They was ear
ear
hustling.
hustling. Hey, word is coming down. They gonna try to feed them Negroes.
Yeah.
So they're coming back, delivering the mail, but stopping and letting the other brothers and sisters know.
Absolutely.
Hey, word is coming down. The
Hey,
wiretap.
we always been able to get a word around.
Yeah.
You know, how somebody knows something that, hey.
Yeah, word of mouth is
Word of mouth.
is-
Word of mouth.
That's the best mode of marketing and promotion. Is always been
absolutely.
word of mouth. It's always been word of mouth.
So that we were talking about Granger and him not really reading the proclamation.
Was it more so he just like, I'm just doing my job?
That's all it was. I got to go over here to Texas and do this.
And
They
tell these
telling me.
Negroes, yeah, basically, and in his mind, now he probably didn't say Negroes back then.
Yeah. Well, even in General Order Number 3, there are some restrictive instructions. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and to work for wages. Therefore, they could not leave. The relationship changed from master-slave to employer-employee, and in many cases, in records, you read that they had to have a note from their employer before they could leave the plantation. Sound like a slave passing me.
Still, yeah, it's
And I take it even further today. People don't realize we still have passes.
oh yeah,
Driver's license. If you ain't got a driver's license, how you gonna move around? It's a pass to be on the road.
and in some instances they, to touch on what you're saying, they kept them there because of whatever the season was. They want to lose that money.
Well, they didn't want to lose their labor.
Yeah, the labor.
They didn't want to lose their labor.
The sharecropping of what was going on at that time. Hey, they coming down giving this order saying that y'all technically free, but I still need y'all to work so I don't lose this money. You know,
It's all economics.
it's always been
It's economic exploitation of the masses for the benefit of an elite few.
Yeah, one thing I put in my notes, man, I just wanted to touch on in dealing with Lincoln, because a lot of times in school they have this ideology of Lincoln freed the slaves. Then it's a credit that comes with that. And
Another savior kind of
that savior syndrome. So,
but he did do some things that were important. But that Emancipation Proclamation was really just kind of a war act that he was doing to weaken the South and to try to strengthen the North by letting those enslaved people that ran away come over and then putting them to work.
So one of the quotes in the Daily National Intelligencer, that's what they called it back then. This was 1862. This is one of the quotes from Lincoln. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or destroy slavery. His primary cause with that Emancipation Proclamation was to save the Union. And one of the things that was said was, hey, it's almost like white people shed blood, black people shed blood too. If we need them to win the war, grab them. Give them a gun.
Yeah,
Let them fight.
Eventually, Frederick Douglass convinced him, give him a gun, let him fight.
Yeah. Because initially, leading up to the Civil War, a lot of people may not know, Abraham Lincoln was trying to figure out what to do with black people. One of his theories was colonizing Central America. To send all the black people, hey, colonize Central America, send them there. He was going through things in his mind of what do I do with black people here.
Yeah.
Eventually was, we needed them for war, and then black people wanted to fight in war.
And people think Lincoln's first worked to free enslaved people was in 1863. In 1862, but I'm gonna drop some new knowledge on you. The first enslaved person he freed was in 1841. A woman named Nance Leggins Costley. He helped her to win her freedom.
Because he was a lawyer.
He was a lawyer. He was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he helped her to win her freedom. She had 2 daughters and a son, a 2-year-old son in 1841. That son grew up, joined the Union Army, and was here in Galveston in June of 1865. So the first male freed by Abraham Lincoln eventually became a soldier and came to Galveston bringing the message of freedom. That don't mean he was sympathetic to everybody's desire, but I'm saying that's some of the historical facts that people don't know. He worked her case and helped her to win. This is Trials of the First Slave Freed by Abraham Lincoln.
Hold it up.
So Carl Adams wrote that book. The first slave freed by Abraham Lincoln was 1841, not in 1863. And she had 3 kids, two daughters and a son. Man. And Carl is here. He just flew in today, and he'll be doing a book signing on Friday, tomorrow, here in this location, the Juneteenth Legacy Project headquarters. So it's our goal to help educate and empower people with information, and then they can make better decisions. As they become more enlightened, they will drive out the darkness of ignorance and intolerance from just not knowing. You need to be enlightened, and this American house that we live in needs to be rewired. It needs to be replumbed. The foundation is cracked because the true history has not been taught. So that's what I like about y'all, sharing true history and encouraging people to read books. You know, the weapons we used before, guns, bullets, and if we have to use that to survive, do what you got to do to survive. You know, I believe in protecting yourself, your family, but also empower your mind by reading and knowing the information, finding out that it was black soldiers that made Lee surrender at Appomattox. You like that? So Beyonce
now, and you got to think, we got high schools in Houston
named after Lee.
Now, they started to change them just recently. But
so Beyonce has a song called Black Parade, right? But I think of this Black Parade of victories. These Union soldiers going from town to town and state to state. They took Richmond April 3rd of '65. They were at Appomattox. Boom, they take that. The white soldiers are mustered out because they've been in the service. April 9th, 1865 represents like the end of the Civil War in theory, right? Some people think we still fighting the Civil War.
I mean,
later,
I can't think of the year when they had the Dixiecrats. That was.
I mean, it's a continuous battle of good and evil, and light and darkness. And the thing is, the soldiers, they moved from Appomattox. The black soldiers, somebody had to come to Texas. They say, we'll go. Our brothers and sisters are over there. My family is over there.
That sense of unity. From reading and understanding.
Who want to fight more for the freedom than the enslaved people? That's why 75%. You think about what was the population of black folks to the overall population, and it was 75% of the forces that came into Texas were black soldiers.
Because I want to say it was what, over 200,000.
200,000 soldiers that fought. But the ones that came to Texas, about 20,000 or a little more. General Philip Sheridan.
Some in Louisiana. Soldiers in Texas.
But the ones that was ordered over to Texas in January of 1866, Sheridan said he had 6,500 white soldiers, 19,768 black soldiers.
One thing I want to touch on also, Sam, is the grounds of Galveston, and you being a native in the spirit of Galveston. A lot of times people in Houston, because I'm from Houston, Savvi's from Houston, we don't get the integral history of Galveston. People just started figuring out the heavyweight boxing champ, Jack Johnson, and his connection to Galveston.
Most famous Galveston native son.
And then we started talking about Juneteenth and that story and its connection to Galveston. I didn't know, because in school they don't mention Galveston like that.
Well, Galveston was the New York of the South.
And see, they never would tell us that.
Galveston was a major port city with a natural deep water port here before the ship channel and all of that up to Houston, where ships could come all the way in and bring all that business to Houston. Houston was just land and stuff up there. It wasn't a city. Galveston was the most populous city.
Houston was pretty much mush.
Yeah, Galveston was at one time the most populous city in Texas before more people moved in. And the reason being, it was a major commercial center. The largest enslaver in the state of Texas lived here where Kempner Park is. Kempner Park is where his home was at. It's not original home there. His name was Robert Mills. He and his brother David had 850 enslaved people in 1865. So between the 1820s and 1865, when they came here in the 20s, they built an empire that was so large that they had Mills money. They printed their own money starting in 1843. They had their own money, Mills money. They were better than the bank backing it up. And they were the bank. So they had 7 plantations, 4 in Brazoria County, 2 in Matagorda County, and 1 in Fort Bend County. So his home was here, but his brother ran the plantations from Brazoria. So when the Union soldiers got here, the reason they come to Galveston, it's a major port center.
Coming to Galveston first.
Yeah, it's
to let Texas know.
To let Texas know. You get Galveston, you got Texas. At that time in 1865, if you took Galveston down, you took Texas down, because this was the commercial. This is where everything had to come here to get shipped out. You bring it in by train and put it on ships to move and navigate. So if you take over Galveston, they can't get their crops into the Gulf to get it nowhere else, because everything was coming to Galveston. Yeah. So it was a major commercial center. So on the north side of the Strand, we're sitting here on the south side on June 17, 2021. Free men talking about this history, but on the north side in 1865, on June 17, people were still being traded and sold through the largest auction house west of New Orleans. So in this 2200 block, we're changing the energy in this space where they used to auction people, we're auctioning art.
Let's, before we wrap it up, I want to talk about this space, the Juneteenth Legacy Project. Because now we're moving up to what's happening now in 2021. We built those building blocks, like you said, and taking them from them 1800s and moving and talking about the importance of Galveston. Because a lot of people, they just look at Galveston as a place to go to the beach. If they're from Houston, it's just a place to go to the beach. They don't know the history.
Oh, we're about to light them up. There's a Buddhist saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Let class begin. And
not understanding the deep legacy, heritage, and culture.
Oh, absolutely. Galveston is an island of success. During Reconstruction, you have people like George T. Ruby. Here's another champion of equal rights during Reconstruction. If not for George T. Ruby and Matthew Gaines, you don't have a Prairie View A&M University and public institution. But you know what else you don't have? Texas A&M University. I'm a proud graduate of Texas A&M University, but when I was there, I didn't know that Matthew Gaines, George T. Ruby, black legislators helped push to set up Texas A&M. Why didn't anybody teach me that?
Yeah, and then you had those Merrill Acts, for land grants.
Yeah.
And then the Freedmen's
Bureau. Land grant college. But it was black legislators that were pushing for education because they knew that their children were going to need education. So the public school education we think of today, it wasn't like that back in the 60s, 1860s and 70s. They pushed and made a priority education. So now as we get a new Juneteenth holiday, we need to push for education. We need to go to work to train ourselves about this history and teach ourselves this history. If they're going to take it out the classroom, then we need to put it on public display, like we have this mural on public display 365 days, 7 days a week, 'cause 24 hours a day.
It's for some people, it's a sense of shame in celebrating Juneteenth because they look at it as if we're kind of celebrating being the last.
Getting late. But here's the thing, oftentimes I talk to people about enslavement. enslavement is something that happened to your ancestors, and your ancestors survived. So the strength of the DNA of the Africans from the African continents and countries, many countries in Africa, the continent, there is strength in the resilience and survival. So we don't have nothing to be ashamed about. They did what they had to do to survive so you could even exist. And what we need to change is how we see those things and those events. People say, oh, I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have taken that. We got people right now that's scared to ask for a raise.
It's true.
They scared to go into HR and confront somebody. And you want to talk about you wouldn't let nobody put their hands on you and whip you and do this and that. You won't even show up to a city council meeting. Now, you won't even show up to a school board meeting. You won't even show up and vote. Voter apathy is horrible. Well, they're going to do what they want to do. They're doing what they want to do because people are not being involved. And you got to get involved and take action. You won't go to a PTO meeting. You want. I mean, what I'm talking about is being active in your community.
In the now.
Yeah,
Being
in the
active
now.
in the now.
Be active. So right now that we have a holiday, don't think, oh, I got another day off of work. How are we going to take this moment and push things forward and make sure we don't go backwards?
Because, Brother Sam, here's the thing with holidays. Most people don't do the research to know why it's celebrated anyway.
Whatever holiday it is.
So if you say Juneteenth, people know the name. They know bits and pieces of things. If you say, okay, whether you agree that it should be a holiday or not, on that day, how about you use it as a day of study to teach?
There you go.
So now on Juneteenth, you use it as a mechanism to teach. Each one teach one. Use it as a way to have that conversation. So now people aren't walking around ignorant when they use the word Juneteenth.
That's right.
Especially black people. And a lot of people, they associate it with us just as like a Southern holiday. Oh, that's the Negroes down south. You know, the people on the East Coast, they may say, that's the Negroes down south getting the message too late. And you say, if it wasn't for them Negroes down south, y'all wouldn't be where y'all are.
And a lot of down south Negroes migrated through the Great Migration north and other places. So they talking about something they may not even understand their ancestors were down south.
Hey,
Chicago,
y'all wouldn't have the blues.
yeah. Check your DNA. You might have some down south DNA in you. So the thing is, it's nothing to be ashamed about. So it's something that happened to the people. It's not who they were. They were enslaved, and they survived. And because they survived, you're here today. So if you got to knuckle up and use them hands to deal with stuff, people, I'm not my ancestors.
No,
I'm not going to take this
that's
to that.
a disrespect.
Yeah, that's right.
But also, in understanding holidays in the history of it, people don't have a problem celebrating European or Eurocentric-centered holidays without doing the research. So a person, they'll celebrate, they'll pop firecrackers on the 4th of July.
Well, everything gets commercialized, and Juneteenth is already becoming commercialized.
Well,
Stores are already selling stuff. They're already selling yard signs. It's marketing. But we need to protect the narrative. We need to control the narrative of what we're going to do. And your point, study on that day, find something that you could do, attend some programming where you can learn some real history.
For one thing, I want you to let the people know exactly where this place is and the purpose of this place, this building that we're in right now, having this conversation.
Yeah, we're in the old Galveston Square building, Suite 101. The address is 2217 Suite 101. We've transformed this space into an art gallery, an educational center where we are empowering individuals with knowledge, promoting reading, promoting the art. We have different artists here: Ted Ellis, Eddie Fowler, Dantrell Boone. We're bringing in a young artist, Chase Sampe. We've invited Cherry Meekins, and we have the artwork of the artist Reginald Adams and his team,
Houston,
the creatives. He's responsible for putting up the mural, and the artists that worked with him: Kadavian Baylor, Dantrell Boone, Cherry Meekins, Samson Adenube, Joshua Bennett. This is the team that gave us this almost 5,000 square foot mural, but that 5,000 square foot mural, and it's not a but, it's an and. Because if you go to a wedding and you see beautiful icing on the cake, That's good. We want nice icing, but we want to find out what else is in the cake.
Yeah.
See, what's on the outside of the building is icing, and we want you to come inside and learn what else is in the cake, because there's more in this story of our history than what you can see on the outside. That's just to bring you in. So yes, the sweet taste of the icing gets you here. Yeah. But then let's dive deep. You remember when you used to lick that bowl and they were making the cake? Get that not only just the icing, but the mix of the cake.
Oh yeah, at the grandma.
In the bowl, at grandma, yeah. We want you to know what else is in this cake.
But now that you mention that, also the icing on the cake is the holiday. Now,
you got that.
Hey, legislation. Okay, Biden, you signed out for a holiday, and now you understand the history and what's been going on. So then it has to be some legislation that has to come down. We got to start talking about reparations. There's other things.
We got to do the repair work.
Yeah,
the repair work.
To start coming after that.
So here's the trick with
the symbolism.
Here's the trick with the reparation conversation, though, because what happened during freedom in 1865, they start paying people, but what did they do? They had many cases they didn't have land, so they had to sharecrop, tenant farm. So even though they were getting paid, but they had to turn it back over.
Yeah, you got to rent the house. Equipment.
Yeah, rent the equipment.
You're free, but
you don't have access.
Jim Crow. Now Jim Crow is coming into play. So now, okay, yeah, you still got to make some money. You sharecropping, but you rent the equipment from me. Yeah. So I'm taking you, I'm giving you the money store and getting it right back.
Yep. And in some cases, they get paid them in tokens that they couldn't even use in other cities, so they forced them to shop at the company store.
But I'm just saying that with that momentum of, it's good that current President Biden, okay, you signed on to make it a federal holiday. Now, as black people, we got to keep demanding more.
Absolutely.
Keep the pressure. Keep applying the pressure. People always like to say the pressure. Keep applying the pressure, because we can't just say, okay, symbolic victory and then move on.
We got
everyone else is getting legislation passed for them.
Yeah. We got to move the conversation forward. Right here in this moment, right now, what really got us to this national holiday was events in 2020 in Tulsa when there was going to be a rally on Juneteenth, and the community said no. So this spurred activity, and unfortunately, the tragic events in May of last year with Brother Floyd's death led to a great deal of interest in philanthropic efforts to put money toward different projects. Well, this project is a result of me reading an article by the co-chair with me of the Juneteenth Legacy Project, Ms. Sheridan Lorenz, who wrote an article about the George Floyd incident. I read it in the local paper, but I read it. Then I emailed her. We started talking about things in Galveston. How do we improve life? There was another mural put up here in town, Planet of the Apes. Apes on the side of the building, burning up the city, tearing stuff down.
Oh, wow.
And that imagery upset me so that I say, we need some positive images. And then I suggested to her, hey, we need to put a Juneteenth mural on the side of this building. Her family, Mitchell Historic Properties, owned the building. She talked to them about the idea. They agreed, so we get permission from the property owner. Then we have to take a design. We got a young artist, Chase Sampe, to do a sketch for us. I gave that sketch to original. He expanded it with his team. We took the design to them in November. They approved it. We started raising money in December. We made a public announcement and launched February 1st. They started painting March 9th. They finished April 13th. And we're sitting here in the Juneteenth Legacy Project headquarters reporting about Juneteenth being a national holiday with a 5,000 square foot mural on the wall
and this
completed.
Is the smaller version.
This is the smaller version behind us. This is the model that they use to project on the wall to do the sketch. But we're here now in this moment. We raised almost $500,000. So what I want to talk about is that when the power structure decides to support something, it's not just about throwing money at it, because it also takes programming. So
we have to have infrastructure in place. So if someone wants to give you It's like someone saying, I want some money. Okay, if I give it to you, what are you gonna do with it? Do you have some infrastructure in place?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was trying to explain to them with the group is that we have ideas and programming ideas. So I've been working with artist Ted Ellis for 15 years. We started the Free at Last painting in the Juneteenth celebrations on a historic property that I purchased on June 17th, 2006. 15 years ago to today, we had our very first Juneteenth celebration in Hitchcock at the property that was built for a Confederate soldier. We bought it in December, me and my wife. 6 months, I said I want to have a Juneteenth celebration. We had it on June 17, 2006. My former employer supported it financially, and 15 years later, what started off with $10,000 at an event is almost $500,000 today, 15 years later, in support of a project. And I'm hoping to push that original painting, the minimum bid of $1 million, and get this conversation going around black art, black artists. All the art doesn't have to be done by a black artist, but black artists need to be supported while they're living, and not just let individuals trade their art after they're deceased, making money.
Hey, the artists, they're gonna have to hit rewind on that one, man. That's
yeah. We want you to benefit from your art.
They say that's church right there.
Yeah, it's church. So the artists here in Galveston, we want a Galveston cultural renaissance. We want to celebrate this art.
And the art tells history. The art tells the story.
The art says nothing and says everything, according to Mr. Ellis. And then with Mr. Adams, he's done 350 community projects. So
he's done a lot of mosaic
stuff in Houston.
Work out in Houston. Yeah. So shout out to Reg and his team, man. I just want to say thank you, man, for taking this time, man. It worked out on this day.
On this day, we talked about this through messaging. This is the thing I've been communicating. We didn't have any
idea that
it was
we were
going to
be this day on this day, and this was going to be a federal holiday.
On the 17th in 2020, we made history. We're making history with this right now, with you being here in Galveston on the southwest corner of where the events actually happen. Everybody goes to Ashton Villa. We honor the memory of Representative Al Edwards for getting the holiday passed, but the actual union headquarters was downtown on the Strand. I have some black people that feel like we don't need to be down there talking about our history down on the white folks Strand. What you talking about?
Yeah.
This all us. Exactly. And it's all our history. And they don't know the real history that black soldiers came right here and walked the streets of Galveston. So they're willing to support the Granger narrative, standing on the balcony telling you you're free, but they're not wanting to accept the black soldiers actually came here. So is it me or is it you that don't want to accept this truth of what actually happened? And
that's a lot of conditioning that has to
cultural conditioning that we got to reprogram ourselves. We got to read as we rewire the house. The lights will get brighter. You ever had a house where the lights flickering and it's kind of dim because the wiring bad? So I have to do the work to rewire the house so that my children can live in the light, and they don't have to live in the world that's dark. And when we look out this window, that street is dark, but we lit up in here in more ways than one. I'm so glad you came in, my brother.
Yes, sir, bro.
Yeah, we lit up. We lit up with these books. Hey, light it up.
This is
you're gonna have to come back.
Yeah, definitely, man. This is Pod and Platformation. That's our platform. It's Pod and Platformation. Equality. My brother Savvi, brother Sam, man. Thank you,
Professor Juneteenth. I'm getting in that too.
All right, man. Hey, thank you for opening up the space and making time for us, because we consider history happening every day, and we want this to be the type of project that young kids can go and look at and watch these kind of shows and use it for research purposes. They may write a paper.
And don't forget the augmented reality. Come out here with your smartphones pointed toward the mural. Learn the videos.
Okay, so you can go out to the back where the mural is and point the smartphone.
I can show you right here how we can start a video right now if you want to do it on camera.
Okay,
we can light it up. While you're talking, I'll light it up.
This
light
right
the phone
here?
Right here, we could do the model right here.
Okay.
So this augmented reality was done by a young man named Danny Asbury L. He, with the Uncover Everything app, you set it up, download it, you hit scan, and let's see if it recognizes Lincoln. Once it recognizes Lincoln, it'll turn green and the video will start. I may be too close.
And the video starts. So it's no excuse.
So you on that side so you can see it. I'm gonna try to get one on this side that you can see. Let me know if it turns green.
Oh yeah, it turns green. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it.
So then you could touch it and then move away. Once you touch it and move away, then you could just watch it.
So it's no excuse.
Augmented reality.
Yeah, it's
now you can learn this history.
So for kids that say, "Oh, I don't want to read a book," but they can do everything on their phone. They come in and
play with their phone.
Bring your phone.
Yeah, we need to engage them. We need to find new ways to engage them with the new technology.
Yeah.
So this augmented reality, we got a freedom tour that you can move through the city and learn this history with several different freedom markers, starting with the Middle Passage, Juneteenth, the old U.S. Custom House, the Courthouse Square, Reedy Chapel. Galveston is an island of success. So many individuals. George Rufus Gibson, principal of one high school for 48 years. Not even a postcard here to remember him. So we need to tell the story of that success. Jack Johnson, first heavyweight champion, Galveston's most famous native son. Jesse McGuire Dent, founder of Delta Sigma Theta, born right here in Galveston. Norris Wright Cuney, George T. Ruby, Richard Nelson. I go on and on and on. Barry White, born right here.
Yeah,
Barry White, born right here on the island.
That's what we do this for, man.
That's right.
That's what we do this
so
for.
So we want to come back. Want y'all to come back so we can tell the story. And we want people to start coming down to Galveston, not just for the beach, but for the inspiration and for the light. We want to light it up.
Yeah, not just come and be a tourist, even if you're from Houston and just go to the beach. Now that people know, there's no excuse. Because a lot of people may say, "Well, I didn't know that this existed." Now that
we're gonna ring the bell.
Now that you know, there's no excuse when you come to Galveston. There's no excuse if you're sitting at home to do the research. But once again, man, thank you, brother, man. Appreciate this. This has been, man, it's been Gentleman's History Sessions, Gentleman's History Hours of Show. This is Gentleman's History Session. This is, man, Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth.
2021. It'll be Juneteenth this Saturday. Today is June the 17th, which will be the official day that the
go down in the record that it was made a national holiday. Federal employees off tomorrow on the 18th.
Yeah,
post office closed. If you ain't get your mail today, you out. You out of there till Monday because it's a holiday. Come down to Galveston, celebrate. I know this may air afterwards, but if we get a little clip or trailer, we tell them, come down for the weekend to the spot, the southwest corner of 22nd and Strand. See the mural dedication. But if you want some fire, come over to the Grand Opera House at 4 o'clock Saturday. I have an event that will be broadcast live through another platform. But we're going to be at the Opera House. Seating is limited to 200, but we're going to be with Dr. David McNally that wrote this book, Blood and Money, War, Slavery, Finance, and Empire. Fire. We're gonna dive deep into this cake. See, eggs, flour, and sugar are normally what you bake, but pain, suffering, and exploitation are the ingredients in this cake. So while you sing and dance and continue to celebrate, remember the historian told you it's so much more in this cake.
Thank you, brother. If you're watching this on YouTube, man, hey, y'all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is Gentleman's History Hour.